Yeah, I'm Brian Felsen. I'm based in Los Angeles. Right now, I'm just helping a bunch of companies at the intersection of music and crypto. Prior to this, I've worked for several blockchain protocols, including Harmony, Masa, and IntMax. And prior to that, I ran CD Baby, the world's largest independent music distributor, as well as was the president of AdRev, which is a leader in YouTube monetization.
All right. Very cool. So many intersections with music and blockchain and crypto and distribution before crypto. So I think this will be really interesting to jump into. Before we go into some of those technologies, which may have a profound effect on musicians, what does it mean today to be a professional musician?
Wow, that's a great question. To be a professional musician today, it's a very, very confusing time, but it's not, and it's only an abnormal time with the introduction of AI. It's a little confusing because we're coming off of an era where artists could both distribute and monetize their music if they were extremely talented or lucky and make a lot of money with it. Then from there, we went into an era where they could distribute and monetize their music and pay utility bills with it, as we saw at CD Baby. And now it's become, extremely challenging with the dominance of streaming services. Adding to that mix, AI, which sort of challenges the entirety of the artistic endeavor of our species. It's a crazy time indeed. So it's not so unusual in the grand scheme of things in terms of monetizing your work. I mean, you needed a big patron all throughout history until just this window in the 20th century. Now that's kind of returned, but there's this added twist of AI, which has completely upended everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not a very pretty picture you're painting. I hope we can turn it more into the well, let's just be real. The most important thing is that we're real and honest, and then we can be, clear about what the steps forward are. And we will jump into some of those technologies which are going to have or could have a profound effect on the lives of musicians. Let's start with one of them and just to get your general take on it, which you just mentioned, which is AI. Do you think AI is a net positive or a net negative for musicians?
I don't think it it's very early to say. I don't think it matters whether it's net positive or net negative because it's sort of like death and taxes. It just is. And, in an ideal world, it becomes like, any piece of technology, a digital audio workstation or a typewriter where, the artist uses it and then then creates with it. However, from what I'm seeing, it's using the artist instead of the other way around by sucking up all the content and creating its own works. In writing, I'm seeing so many people just sort of plug in some input and then get some output, which could be text to text or it could be text to video. Some of my favorite songs of 2024 were AI songs, which is kind of staggering. And if that trend persists, there's going to be some counter trend, just like vinyl, of a new romantic, back to the land, creation in Luddite form, and Luddite meaning by using traditional digital tools, I suppose, and making art as a therapeutic, as a meditative way of communicating one's values and aesthetic choices to oneself and to the community. But at the end of the day, the power of AI to outshine us and to create novel output even greater than what our minds could expect is very likely to take over, and it's going to be a batshit crazy time for quite some time.
That sounds like a fair assessment. It strikes me that there are some places where AI will at least be slower to get to, and if not, almost inconceivable. which is, for example, like live performance, particularly live performance in small venues, right? Like, the cost of shipping a robot out to your local bar, which is only paying the musicians $100 for that night anyway, right? It just doesn't seem to add up. So I think there will be this kind of IRL that is difficult to disrupt, if not just economically unfeasible. But when it comes to recorded music, I think you make a lot of great points, and it's just there, right? It's going to be like there, like the faucet is there, and you turn on the water. It's just there. How much it will disrupt, the recorded music space, I think, is yet to be seen, and I think it will be a kind of iterative conversation, let's say, between human and machine, and those lines will largely be blurred. So it's definitely an interesting time going forward, and creates a lot of problems. Some of those problems are addressed by blockchain, and that's really what I want to dive into with you now. Is when I talk about blockchain, I'm talking about tokenization, NFTs. What do you think this has the potential to disrupt the world of the music industry? We've seen a lot of major companies partnering or investing in the space. What's the state of it now, and where do you think it's going in the future?
That's a great question. The state of it now is that it's really the Wild West. However, railroads, when they first came out, were the Wild West, and the Wild West, when it came out, was the Wild West, and great things were built from it. I don't think that crypto is a rug pull in toto. I think that it is the future of how music will be created and distributed and monetized. And the reason why I think it's kind of the savior of the music industry, and I don't really care too much about the music industry. I mean, I came from the music industry, but my heart is not bleeding for the poor major labels, or whatever the Game of Thrones is among the players, and all that catalog consolidation that's out there. I care about the independent artists, and have for the entirety of my career and my adult life. Right now, you look at this. What's the current state? I mean, you look at the streaming platforms, and and Spotify will brag that, hey, there's 250,000 artists have made $1,000 in streaming revenue on their platform, and that sounds great. But there's 11 million artists on their platform, and that means about 99.5% of the artists aren't making $10,000 a year, and almost 98% of them aren't even making $1,000. And what kind of strikes me is that an artist today would need 300,000 streams a month just to make US minimum wage. And I don't know many artists that are getting 300,000 streams a month every single month. Yeah. And that's poopy. So where do we go from here? And the answer is Web3. I think that Web3, NFT, and I could talk about, why NFTs have gotten a bad rap, and why I think that Web3 has the answer. I don't know if you have any questions right now, or if I should just continue why I think that Web3.
No, just continue. I think this just continue down this road. Yeah.
Web3 NFTs are a way that you can represent ownership and digital scarcity. I mean, ever since Napster, you could just download a song. So it's like, okay, yeah, I can just download this song. But then now with an NFT, it's a unique and traceable of ownership and provenance, digital artwork, if you will. And you're owning that in your wallet is not just owning the MP3, which you could still download or pirate or stream or whatever you wanted, but owning this is a record that you bought it and you're having a one of. It could be a one of one. It could be a one of anything you want. But when it's in your wallet, now there's all these other utilities that get opened up for the fan. You could get early access to tickets. You could get bonus content. You could get access to IRL events. You could get exclusive membership into a Discord, and you could chat with other fans or chat with the artists themselves.
Hmm.
And all of those benefits are a unique extra and add-on that the fan could get, because it's not just about ownership. And it's a collectible, and they could participate in the royalties, and they could resell it on the secondary market, and that's all exciting. But I don't think that most fans buy these things or would want to for investments. I think they want to be a part of the artist's journey, and they want to get the exclusive access, and they want to get the exclusive content. And this, for the first time, allows artists to engage with their fans.
Hmm.
So, what that is what's good for the fans. For the artists, what's great is that now they can get a higher revenue potential than getting fractions of a penny a stream.
Hmm.
They don't have to sell like $1,000 NFT like the early days of 2021 with all the speculation because of the high gas fees and the high fees of minting it. Now you could sell an NFT for $10. In fact, let's not even call it an NFT because they got such a bad rap, which I could say why, but it's
Yep.
at this point they can get the engagement, and they can get the revenue, and they can get control over their creative work. And if the incentives are aligned between the artists and the fans, this thing can take off huge.
Yep. How and when will this, or if really, does this have the potential to have a mass adoption effect with Web3? What's your take on that?
I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when.
Okay.
I think that, the reason why it hasn't gotten adoption now is because there's just so much damn friction. I think that the biggest piece. That's the biggest piece I think of. I think before I get into the friction and what can be done about it, I think the other problem is that the incentives of the fans and the artists are not aligned. I mean, right now,
Yep.
a lot of these platforms a lot of people that are building platforms are coming at it from a DeFi perspective. They're Web3 degens, and they think, oh, yeah, great, we can tokenize your music, and we can, and people can get participation, and we can have all these great tools that any DeFi protocol would have. And my answer is, who cares? My mom wouldn't understand it if you told it to her. And, the fan of Taylor Swift is not buying this thing so they could make money off of it. And I've got, like, let's say I like some band like Hogscraper, like a death metal bluegrass band from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I love this band. And like, I want to see them live, like an IRL experience, just like what you talked about. Now, if somebody said, yeah, buy their NFT and you can get 0.003% of the future sales of this, it's like, I don't want their money. You know what I mean? It's not what I want. I want to be a part of this. I want to get new and free stuff. I want them to know that I'm a part of it, and just to engage with other people who are a part of it. So this whole
Right.
financialization thing is not the point of camping, I think, for most fans. And the other
Right.
problem that I'm seeing now is, this sort of fake gamification, like the idea that, like, hey, everything's gamified, so let's give people points and incentives for engagement, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, well, that might help for certain people in certain countries at certain times, at certain types of users, but you really need to incentivize people. So what type of incentives do you need for both, right? Well, for the artists, you need to show them that they can get more money and more fan engagement and greater control. And for the fan, you need to say, okay, here's your incentives to make the switch. You're going to get the exclusives and the remixes and the bonus content, and you're going to get access, right?
Yeah.
So it's about
Yeah.
aligning
Yeah.
incentives. And now for the friction, there's a lot of friction now in Web3.
Hmm.
You have to have this non-custodial wallet, and then there's private keys and seed phrases,
Yeah.
and it can make your head spin. This does not have to be the case. I don't go on TikTok saying, okay, I've got a wallet. Like, I go to my bank with a wallet, sure, but I don't go to a sticky app with that. The wallet should be in the background. People
Right.
should be able to log in with familiar methods like biometric authentication and email instead of seed phrases. It should be made easy. And it should be easy for people to pay. You know what I mean? Like just using whatever they trust and easy to log on, and just easy to use. It's just too damn hard. And it
It's
does
it's
not
almost
have to be that way.
it's almost surprising to me that apps like a digital wallet aren't just baked into the browser experience or something like that. Like, why is it not everyone has that at the moment? You know what I mean? And is this a case of I think Google launched their blockchain division like a couple of years ago, and I'm like, wow, you're 10 years late, I mean, is this a case where decentralized technologies in some ways threaten the entrenched players, and they are not the ones who are going to be the early movers in this?
I Maybe. Meaning that, yeah, in the music industry, what you're saying rings true. It took the music industry 10 years to adopt DDEX. They're very slow. Like, streaming was, I remember Rhapsody, I think, had their player, a decade before it ever got big, and all that other stuff. All this, maybe not a decade, but several years. Um, it's That's probably part of it, but having a browser-based wallet, a project I was involved with, IntMax, did a walletless wallet. There's issues of security. There's issues of cookies. There's Brave is integrated with MetaMask. I mean, there's ways of doing it, and for small amounts of money, it's pretty safe to do the authentication security in browser. I wouldn't do it with hundreds of thousands of dollars in my wallet, but for something like this, it could be done. But
Mhm.
I think that a lot of the answer lies in your phone. You got the secure enclave and what for iPhone and
Mhm.
whatever the heck the Android equivalent of that is.
Yeah.
And with biometric auth and email, you don't need a seed phrase anymore. And
Right.
this can be done in the background with or without an app, either an app or mobile web app. So
Yeah.
I just think it's about a mindset of the platform developers to make it
Yeah.
simple for fans, but also, to make sure that it's not only simple and easy, but that they're really incentivized correctly for access and for bonus content, and for the artist to really give them simple content upload tools and easy templates for releases and tickets and clear guides. And I think a lot of it is just about marketing and outreach to these artists, because there's different types of artists. You get the big artists that are in or coming out of 360 deals. You got the larger independent artists, and then you've got just the bedroom artists. The
Yeah.
true long tail, the newbie, and it's different appeals to each of them, and partnership with different aggregators to get them and to go after them in different watering holes. And with the right marketing and the right incentives for artists and fans and reduce friction, this is going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And will the entrenched players take it over and screw this up for everyone? Absolutely. But there could be a big new platform that can develop and really nip it in the bud, if they go about it correctly.
So that's a near quote, Brian Felsen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. That's a
Oh
pretty
yeah,
strong
yeah,
suggestion.
yeah.
That's a pretty strong suggestion.
I'm sure of this. I'm absolutely sure of this.
So, were there analogous? Is there analogous circumstances at CD Baby that you saw with user onboarding, or like, what the heck is this technology, or like, and how did you address it at that time?
Well, with CD Baby, it had grown to a critical mass by the time we bought it in 2008, that it became a matter of listening to our users and developing accordingly. And we sort of were. I mean, CD Baby was pioneers in a lot of things, in disaggregating distribution from the majors, in direct to fan distribution of physical and digital. It's a great company, but things that it's really not known for. I mean, it had great customer service with between 40 and 50 customer service reps. When I was there, but we really were great at content marketing. We had a large email list that we'd send out to 250,000 people, and musicians, and the musicians would do a lot of our marketing for us, to their fans and to each other, because it was a great deal. It was very, like an Amazon, but on a much smaller scale. Obviously, it was really, really customer focused. And also, we really listened to our customer. When we published lots and lots and lots of blog content, and we could see what people were asking for in the comments. We could see what was getting engaged on, and then we could develop accordingly. And that's why we developed everything from the Facebook Music Store to the to foreign royalty collection to streaming to Book Baby, to ebook distribution, and everything that we made was based on what we were seeing that our customers wanted. And I think that a lot of the platforms that are coming up in crypto would be well advised to really look at it from the customer perspective.
Tell me a bit about what you're working on now, and how you look to address some of these problems.
Now I am talking to a lot of companies, looking at everybody that's in the space that I can find, and talking to the founders to try and see which one I think is going to get traction and help them out. I've already asked to be on a number of board seats, but I don't want to help something that I don't think has the right team or the right idea or the right angle, or really is too far deep in the old school music industry, or in AR, VR, or too deep in crypto financialization. I really am looking for a project that will understand what fans and artists want and be able to communicate that clearly, so that way they can take over the world and end the reign uh, of Spotify. No particular animus to anybody that works at Spotify, but I just am not thrilled with the way their money is being spent, with the way their products being developed, with the way their message is being communicated, with the way they're treating artists. And I think it's just a bad thing for the ecosystem. And yeah, and I'm sorry to say it,
Yeah,
but
well, it
I'm
is.
not
I
the
mean,
only one to say it.
on that note, I think I recall a couple years ago there were a few people complaining about streaming. The payouts and so on. It's reached a sort of critical mass, really, in which it's the most common thing you hear in terms of complaining about the music
Yeah.
industry and the lives of musicians. It's just the most common thing you hear. And Rob Abelo, the thought leader in music, he has a newsletter called "Where Music's Going," I believe it's called, and he queried something like 30,000 people, and it was the number one thing is streaming and Spotify were the number one problem out of like 40 problems. And the second most prominent problem was the devaluing of music. And he put asterisks by both of these points because he said these were far and away the most common responses. And I commented, and it seems to me that those are almost the same issue, right? The devaluing of music, and that people don't like the streaming paradigm. So given that kind of has been set as the main, for lack of a better word, problem or enemy, if you will, to the productive lives of musicians, what do you think is the proper response to that?
I think the proper response is to understand that Spotify is not evil, and that the enemy is not evil. I'm not going to get all like, oh, love thine enemy or whatever, but I'd say understand them. I don't think that Spotify are the ones that devalued music. I mean, they're now the same, but music, once the internet and speeds got fast enough, the Napsters, the LimeWires, the Kazas, that completely made music free. It made it commoditized. It made the artistic endeavor, uh, at best, background music to corporations, sync licensing, commercials, video games, and trailers and the like. And at worst, absolutely worthless. So then streaming comes along. Apple comes along and then says, "Okay, great. Well, better than stealing. Why don't you pay 99 cents for the thing, and it'll be really convenient and it'll be yours." And that really helped for a while. Now, artists are getting less money than getting, $14.99 minus $4 from CD Baby, or $18.99 before that minus $18.98 from the major labels, and all that. But it's a worse deal, but it's the best possible deal in the circumstances. Then streaming comes along, and it's great for the consumer. It's a great deal for the consumer. Whatever the consumer's paying, Spotify jacks up the rate or whatever. It's like, okay, now it's $14.99 or $12.99 or $19.99, whatever they're going to charge. It's the entire practically in the entire history of recorded music, Western and Eastern, available at your fingertips, and you're in God mode as a consumer. For that amount of money a month, I mean, that's just like such a tiny fraction of what we were paying for it back in the days before the flood. So,
well, but the flip side to that, the
Yeah.
other side of that two-sided sword is that it can result in the devaluing of music. When everything's given for free, the consumer can say, well, place less value on it, right?
Yeah, but it was devalued before the streamers, before RDO, before Spotify, before Amazon Music, before any of these people came aboard. It was devalued by stealing. So all of this is now the payouts are so low, it's practically identical to stealing. But the fact is that it's Spotify did not do a bad thing, and they are not the devil, and they didn't create this problem. I think that's the first thing. Now, understanding that, now you got to say, okay, well, what can we do about it? Well, within the Spotify model and without the Spotify model. Well, within the Spotify model, companies are not altruists. The game is that they're beholden to the shareholders, and they're owned by, it's everybody from Goldman Sachs to the major labels to the shareholders. And the fact is that they're not going to do what's not in their economic interest to do. But that said, they do have a lot of developers. They've got a lot of power to get ahead of this thing and to make improvements or additions or put things on chain, so that way they could still make buckets of money, and give fairer payouts to musicians. How that intersects with giving Joe Rogan $120 million and all that other stuff, I don't know. I haven't done the math. I don't work at Spotify, and they're not sharing all their numbers. But I do know that this is not rocket science, because a lot of dinky Web3 developers are finding ways and basically answering the problem for them, just like, for example, RDO answered a lot of their UI problems for Spotify. But that's another story. Outside of the Spotify model, it's incumbent on these Web3 startups to really to make something better. Great. Okay, you hate it. It's unfair. It stinks. Well, make something better. Now, that's like saying, all right, I hate Amazon, so let's everybody not shop at Amazon. No, that's not going to work. But the bar is low for creating a Bamazon, and you can do a two-day delivery,
or an Etsy, or a specialized marketplace of some sort, or an e-commerce shop, and
it's very doable.
I'm a little less confident that Spotify can just pay 0.004 cents per stream, and then all of a sudden the problem gets fixed. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that higher payouts will at all affect the core model, and calls for them to raise their subscription fees by 20% will also not help at all, because it's the core model.
I think it's adding the functionality. They can add the same functionality that, just like, Mark Zuckerberg gets inspired by other companies to add features. I'm sure that Spotify could do this as well.
No, they could. Oh, they absolutely could. I mean, I don't think they will.
No.
Just from a corporate strategy perspective, I don't think they will.
No.
Because the people who run it are making out like bandits. That's fine. That's what, any reasonable person would just cash out when the stock's high. They're doing that. So they don't have a real incentive to upset their structure. The major labels are profitable off this model.
Oh yeah.
So they don't, even if we, get in a room and convince them of this fact that there's revenue being left on the table, I think they would see it as a risk to upset the model whatsoever in any respect. I mean, maybe you have a different perspective on that, and you quite
Well,
possibly have
maybe
more
this,
insights
maybe
into,
maybe Web3 music lives alongside it. People still release their music on Spotify, just like they, make videos and put it on YouTube and whatnot. But, they can sell the equivalent of an NFT, even if it's not called an NFT, on these streaming platforms, and now their fans can get all these benefits, and that's where the fans can buy the tickets to get access to buy the tickets to see them live in the venues that you contemplate. That's where they can get all the juicy bonus content, and that's where they can get get genuine access.
they may do this, and they will probably do it. And in fact, they probably have already done it, and they can just simply pull the big blockchain switch in the back office when they want to. And they will pull that switch when they see some startups disrupting the scene. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying that even if Spotify doesn't pull it, Spotify can live alongside these startups, and the artists can release their music on Spotify and release their token gated communities and bonus music content on these other startups. So maybe they can all live together in grand harmony.
That is the current, like, mostly suggested model for musicians that are considering Web3. It's like, well, put your stuff on streaming, but maybe release it before pre-release as an NFT, or just have an NFT alongside it and then use the streaming as a top of the funnel mechanism. This is the kind of common wisdom, if you will. So, I mean, we'll just have to see how it all plays out. I think what will be interesting, and we're already seeing this, but when it makes sense for some musicians, and perhaps many musicians, to say, yeah, I'm not going to compete with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I just can't be on the same platform where you have a choice between that and the song I did on GarageBand. It just doesn't make sense. I feel like it's stacked against me. I'm not going to be on that platform, and I'm going to I'm just going to go Web3. No one's going to know who the heck I am, but I am going to try to foster a small community. And it just doesn't really make sense for me to give away for free, because it's actually potentially devaluing my Web3 presence, because people could just get the track for free. So there's going to be an interesting conversation, and there will likely be every version that we just said, because there's millions of musicians after all, right? So anything under the sun will be tried. I'm going to try both strategies. I'm going to say no to Web3. I'm going to do only Web3. Right now, Web3 isn't even measurable, let's say, in terms of its impact. And I want to go back to a previous statement you made, which is the one that I'm just going to press on repeat for the next 6 months, is that it's not if, but when. So what is this? Break down to me what some of I mean, you've mentioned kind of sort of in broad strokes, like onboarding, ease of onboarding, and this kind of thing, but maybe get into the psychology, or what will start to drive because ultimately what drives exciting things in music is the experience of it, I think, right? It's like, you can't just quantify it. It's that something really excites a group of people and it catches like wildfire, and you just can't put that in a spreadsheet. So what do you think will be the most exciting thing about Web3 for music going forward?
And what do you mean by, before I answer that, what do you mean by most exciting? I mean, or are you saying like, how is it going to get traction? Like, what's it going to take to get traction, in what order? Or what do you mean like the most exciting? Because I do think that, what do you mean?
Yeah, I guess I mean, what do you think is going to be the match that sparks the wildfire?
Sure. The match, I think it's going to be a 3-step thing. I think the first,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 3-step thing. Firstly, it's going to be getting the platform's house in order so that friction is reduced, and so that that fans are incentivized to come aboard, and that artists' incentives are aligned. So I think it's really, firstly, it's going to be a development. It can be a minimum viable product that's not so feature rich, but it's got to be damn easy. It's got to give artists a genuine fair shot at distributing and monetizing their work, and it's got to give fans a genuine fair shot of getting some access and some bonus content. That's all it needs. So it doesn't need any BS of financialization or gamification. So the first step one is going to be the product. Step one is always the product. Spoiler alert. Then
Okay.
it's going to come from the artists and not the fans. I mean, you saw like with Tidal, a couple key artists got some adoption to Tidal for some time. So how do you get the artist? Because it's CD Baby, the artist is what did the marketing for us by and large.
Hmm.
And I think it's going to be different for all the three buckets of artists that I suggested. I think for the major labels, you're going to give them what they can't get in their 360 deals, control and ownership, new revenue streams. And for the larger indies, I think partnering with some of the indie labels is going to help, and cross promoting with various music tools and enabling artist onboarding. And for the long tail artists, I think that a lot of it is going to come from partnering with people like CD Baby, DistroKid, and people that already have lots of long tail artists, and just trying to onboard them in a big bucket, and giving these artists a reason why to do it. What they want, marketing support or cross promotion with more established Web3 artists, or whatever it is, reduce platform fees, you name it. And then once you've got the product, and once you got the artists, then the fans come. I don't think it's going to be like some major outreach, to the fans saying, "Hey, discover new Web3 artists, so that way you can invest in them." Because I am also not just like I'm bearish on financialization and gamification, for a platform. I personally love it. I'm a big fan. If any, that's fine. But I'm bearish on convincing fans that discovery is a good thing. Fans say they want to discover new music, and after an album ends on Spotify, they might, listen for a while and see what the algorithm takes them and everything. But most people are not actively going out and scouring blogs to try and find new music. It happens more through serendipity. It happens through what's in the ether, or what's playing at the gym, or it happens through what your friends are listening and stuff like that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this. Are there any other thoughts for musicians that they should be aware of, with all this technology and everything happening at once? How do you think musicians can prepare for this, or any other thoughts that you'd like to address that we have not addressed?
I think it's key for musicians to stay up to date on what are good outlets to distribute and monetize your music in crypto. And it's fun to play with tools and AI, so that you're not scared of it, but that you could maybe use them to your benefit to help flesh out a musical idea if that floats your boat. But to remember that this time of not making money from your art without a big patron, and most people not making money from their art, is more common than not in the grand scheme of human history. And that given that, to keep making art nonetheless, because otherwise you're just selling. You're not human. I think that making art is an important part of being human. And communicating to an audience is great, and if you can play local shows, great, or if you can spread it online, great. But to focus less on being a contentpreneur than to make weird and wonderful and authentic art that really truly represents who you are. And if your money comes from other sources, well, they always say, don't quit your day job, kid. And I'd say, all right, well, don't quit your day job, but don't quit your night job either. Just keep making art, and hope that the tools and platforms and stay abreast, that you'll be able to profit from it. But if not, profit how you can profit, feed your damn self, but keep making your own weird, crazy art.
Love it. That's amazing. Brian Felsen, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks a lot. It was great. Real pleasure.